All right, Jess, welcome, sister.
Thank you.
Long time coming. Really looking forward to this chat. Thanks for coming along. So the reason I've invited you today is obviously we started with this good men helping good men movement, but obviously at the side of that there is a kind of good women helping good women movement, which will be kind of moving along slightly behind. But what we realise is we've been talking a lot about, you know, us men and understanding our past and maybe how we've carried ourselves and not being too proud sometimes of what we've maybe done in the past, maybe how we've treated women. And I think it's important, as much as we acknowledge that, is sometimes to see it from a female perspective as well. Because I think there's a lot out there, and it's kind of, you know, what I see a lot out there, it's like kind of, you know, there's a lot of problems in society and there's a lot of suicidality both in men and women. And I think men are kind of, you know, too strong coming through with, you know, men, and then women going women. Mm-hmm. And even sometimes the other way, where a woman might come in and really be supportive of the men's kind of movement and really supportive of helping men in this space. What I believe is it's not about men or women, it's about a human being. Mm. And I think men and women have to work in symbiosis, and we both have our different nuances and challenges, and some slightly different, obviously motherhood and things like that. So I think it'd be important, especially since we had Marcelo on the first podcast, great friend of mine, really great human being, definitely a good man, and it'd be nice to transition into you. So hence why I brought you on. So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
No, you're very welcome. All right. So what I'd like to do before we kind of get moving is just understand a little bit about you, just a bit of a high level overview of who you are, you know, and, you know, kind of what's made you the woman you are today. We'll go into a little bit more detail as we go through the podcast a bit later. But from a high level, you know, who are you? Where are you from? And, you know, what brings you here today?
Well, my story is one of many highs and lows. All of it's brought me to becoming the woman that I am today, a woman who's walked through her own fires of self-discovery and now am deeply committed to helping other women rise from their own ashes.
Beautiful. And what is you born in Sydney?
Yeah, so I grew up in the western suburbs of Sydney, which was a fair way away from the life I'd always dreamed of, fame and fortune. And I had this in my head from a little girl. And, you know, I don't know where this came from, but I fell in love with dance. Dance was my first love. And that actually kept me like on the straight and narrow. Okay. My parents put me into that. They were smart. Like it was,
give you a bit of direction.
Yeah, and it did. And I had a great childhood, and it built up a lot of self-confidence in me. And it was not until my teenage years that, you know, I went into that rebellious age of getting caught up in the wrong crowd and really just beginning to lose myself. Like I became a really mean girl in high school. Yeah. And
where do you think that came from? And you talk around that fame and fortune, and I heard something the other day. I was listening to a podcast, and it said that the number one job that when children nowadays get asked what do you want to be when you're older, they say an influencer, or they say I want to be famous, and it's like it's not a job really. Yeah. And was that a societal thing or just something that was in you? Did anybody kind of program you? Any family that kind of?
Yeah, I think there was, like, you know, and there was a lot of what's the word, like attention put on my looks and that, you know, how that will get you far in life and things like that. And that actually turned out to be such a curse in a way, because what ended up happening was I was basing all my self-worth on the way I looked you know, and I didn't then build up other areas of my, you know, personality to give me really true self-confidence. You know, that went well into my adult life. Like I carried these deep-seated insecurities, and like I never really knew where they came from. And partially, like some of it's been passed down, like generational trauma. But yeah, I had to unpack a lot of that. So.
And you say you went off the rails a bit. At what age did you start kind of going off the rails? And when you talk off the rails, I think we get a nice slobber there.
Sorry.
I think you know, I've gone off the rails when I was younger. You know, partying, this, that, and the other in the UK. It's almost a culture in Liverpool where I'm from. How about you? What was it that triggered you to go down that path?
Well, when I say off the rails, like I vowed never to have children.
Wow.
That's how bad I was. Like my poor parents, I would sneak out, jump off the roof of a 2-story house to go and jump in the boot of a car.
Wow.
And be driven around. And like I was just out of control.
At what age was that?
14.
Wow.
13, 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
Must have been tough for your parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and then became a high school dropout. But the only thing that I knew at that time was dance, and that's what I love. So I immersed myself in that and went and studied full-time performing arts. And then that's when after that, got a bit of a break.
Yeah.
So I was signed to Sony BMG in a girl group.
Wow.
And we had a TV show. We, went on to we made a #1 song in Bollywood. That was in a Bollywood movie.
Oh, let's go.
But our manager at the time made a mistake and sold the rights to the song for $1. So instead of being multi-millionaires, we ended up in a lawsuit and completely broke. But this is when I was on tour. I actually met my ex-husband. And then I just dove even harder into like the eastern suburbs party scene.
Oh, yes.
So
I've heard about that famous eastern suburbs
yeah.
party scene.
So then I had a taste of this fame, and then I met this wealthy guy, and I thought like my life was made. Like thought I was living the dream, and it was really fun for a while. Like I loved it. I was 19 years old. And we're going to like these crazy parties. I remember one of these parties I walked in and it was like the OC. And I was like,
I've landed.
Yeah. But then like as you get older, all of that stuff, it's like, was leaving me completely like empty inside. Like I would be traveling around the world to some of the most amazing hotels and stuff. And I remember like just sitting there and just being like, so deeply unhappy and just I'd already been in that cycle of like alcohol and drugs and that being completely socially accepted and normal. So this was just my normal. But things just started to slowly get worse and worse and worse.
A couple of things you touched on there, because I've been in that position where, say, you're not in the right relationship and things aren't good in whatever way, it's work, whatever. You can be in the most beautiful destination in the world, being in Bali or whatever. And if I'm not right because something's not right, I'm not my true authentic self, I don't enjoy it. I sit there and it's just stuff because I don't, inside, I'm either broken or not full.
It's this endless pursuit of like materialistic things or, going places or events, and it just,
It's not what we're about. So that's a great kind of lead into, I always ask people to do the ratings of the 5 pillars of fulfillment. And thank you for doing yours and be vulnerable with that. So I always ask people to do them at their lowest and kind of at their highest or where they are today, so to speak. And I know you're on a growth journey and you're really, really trying to work on yourself. But yours was obviously particularly low at your lowest point, and it was at a score of 20. It was at a score of 2. So in amongst all of the pillars, whether that's, social connections, love and relationships, inner work, all of the 5 pillars were really, really low. And I always say to people, if you haven't got one pillar which is solid, you're at risk. If the ultimate risk is potential suicide, and that's what we're trying to effectively, if we can fulfill people and take them away from that risk step of suicide, you would have been in a really dark place there, right?
Yeah.
When you've reflected over that journey, obviously today, 19, really driving. 19, as I always say to people, that doesn't mean you're one away from perfection, because it's at any given day you can go back, you can go forward. It's a sense check, and it just if you keep checking yourself through these pillars, you'll stay on the right path and keep yourself fulfilled. when you did that reflection, looking at that lowest point and where you are today, was there any kind of moments where you thought, shit, that really makes sense, or did it bring anything up for you?
Look, I knew in my darkest hour where I was at, but I just didn't have, I didn't see a way out, and I didn't have people surrounding me that, for one, I could even really share and be able to open up to tell them in the deep pain I was in. No one really knew. And I felt like I was masking it quite well, but at the end of the day, like, my family have all come out and said, you know, we knew how deeply unhappy you were for so long.
How dark did it get for you?
Yeah, I remember my darkest day.
Yeah.
I was coming off the back of a bender and I didn't have any drugs or alcohol left. And then I remembered I had some magic mushrooms. And let me tell you, magic mushrooms are the most beautiful medicine when used correctly. But to take that on the back of a bender was honestly the worst possible thing you could do.
Wow.
Let me tell you, that was my rock bottom. Wow. I found myself sitting in the shower and I was completely like distorted, tripping, like just a complete mess. My whole life was a complete fucking mess.
Wow.
And that was a turning point for me. Like,
Yeah.
I knew that day that was rock bottom, and things had to change.
And, you know, if you knew then that was your darkest point, what were the biggest contributing factors that were, you know, keeping you back? You know, I always talk about being able to fill your cup, being fulfilled. As humans, we need those juices. What fills me up? Whether it be dance, for example, dancing your early days that would have kept you kind of going. And once that goes, you know, what was it that was the biggest factors that really pushed you to those dark places? And how were you not able to try and fill your cup? Yeah.
Well, I was in a toxic relationship, and the most toxic relationship I was in the one within myself, because I was in a marriage that I was deeply unfulfilled and unhappy in and suppressing a lot. And yeah, that's what was actually destroying me, not having the courage to leave that relationship when I knew I should have. It was probably 5 years longer I stayed. And I know a lot of women that end up doing this because they think they'll stay for their children. And then it ends up actually being the opposite of what you need to do, because the number one thing that our children thrive off is their mother's happiness.
100%.
So, you know, waking up to the fact that I was actually doing her such a disservice by staying in that relationship and keeping myself in this state of being, which was just complete, like, nothingness. Like, I wasn't growing. I was just existing. So sorry about
that's really kind of really heartfelt, and I can understand it, because for a human being, once you lose your purpose and you kind of you feel trapped, and I always say that in relationships, in business, in life, whatever it is, I think, you know, the trick of being the dark trick that gets played on it is kind of like we're in this prison, but we're not, because we're a decision away from changing it, right?
And it was always my decision to save myself, but you have to be ready at the same time. Like, you can't. I fully honor and respect the journey I've been on, and I know that I made that decision when it was right for me, when I had the strength and courage, and it wasn't a lot of strength, but it was enough just to get me out of that relationship. And you know what the silver lining for me was, something that monumental that happened to me, was getting COVID. And I actually asked them to put me in a hotel in isolation for 2 weeks because I knew I had to sort my fucking life out.
Oh, wow.
So I went into this, I got COVID, went into the hotel and went like, that's it. I've got to sort everything out. I had, you know, lawyers on the phone. It's 2 weeks. It was the hardest 2 weeks of my life, being so unwell as well. But, you know, that was also another thing that contributing factors to why I ended up leaving that relationship in the first place, because of the different opinions on the vaccines and stuff. And I know that's...
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because what you've allowed yourself to do this, you give yourself a fire break, right? You've kind of, because if you're going to try to break up out of a relationship or uncoupling, whichever way it is, if you're living with somebody, that's the kind of thing you go. You think, don't you? And you go, and we've all been there. And I've been in relationships too long, years too long.
Yeah.
Maybe shouldn't have gotten in a relationship. And I always talk around, this love and relationships, those questions. When I ask myself them, I go, fuck, why am I only 46, 47? And realizing when I go into a relationship, I need to understand what I want out of a relationship.
Yeah.
And then share that. It's no good just being up here. But when you're in a relationship and you need to uncouple for whatever reason, it's not anybody's fault sometimes, or sometimes it is. It's almost like you look at the hill and go, fuck, it's going to mean I'm going to live with this person for 3 or 4 months while we uncouple. I know this person's going to want to, keep coming at me to try and, continue the relationship. How do we do the financials? What does it mean to the kid? Oh, fuck it, I'll deal with it next year. And that's what I kind of like. So it does take a lot of courage to do that. So that's nice that you kind of, as you say, had that opportunity to have a fire break, come out, really just kind of focus on that. That's pretty cool way of using the problem that you had with COVID.
Yeah, absolutely.
No?
Yeah.
And how long, how you touched on there about, the best thing we can do for our children is show them a loving environment, right? And how did it affect your daughter during that breakup? Was she old enough to soak any of that up?
She was 6 at the time, and it was hard on her. And we're still working through that trauma. But, I'm in a place now to help her actually be able to heal from it, because in healing myself, she's healing as well. And I'm getting her the support that she needs as well through this process. But yeah, of course, it had an effect on her. But, would have had a bigger effect on her if I'd waited till I was 50 and she'd grown up her whole life seeing her parents fight and in this toxic, unhappy, unloving marriage.
100%. And I think you said before, you're perfectly happy with how your life has panned out. And I think it all happens for a reason, right? And that's the same, because with the pain comes the lesson. And even for your beautiful daughter, she's experiencing a little bit of that pain, but what you're doing in healing yourself, and I know you're educating your daughter as well, so she can see all of this, not what to do,
Yeah.
And when she blossoms into her relationship, into adulthood, she's got your lessons to kind of lean on and support and go through. And I'm sure she'll stumble and have her own kind of issues as she goes. But you're right.
Also just being in a truly loving relationship now and having that model that for her of what a healthy relationship looks like.
100%.
That's going to make huge impact on her.
100%. So you mentioned, again, motherhood there. So that's something, I've had a lot of men in here, and we're talking about the huge crisis for, men facing society today. Very similar for women, but you have some added complexities that you have to deal with. And one of the biggest one is motherhood, and how was that? I know you just had a new beautiful child. We call is it the Schmeg?
The Schmeg.
The Schmeg. Great, best nickname ever. With Marcelo, who's a good friend of mine. But how was that motherhood through your darkest time? How was bringing that into all of this as well? How difficult is motherhood for you?
Well, it's difficult at the best of times, but beautiful at the same time. And it's been 2 very, very different experiences from me few, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With my first and with my second, I was completely disembodied when I had Sierra, and I was escaping. And, the sound of her cry, I remember when she was born and they brought her into my room, I had this instant anxiety, I couldn't even have her in the bed with me. We got home and I was like, oh, she has to go in her own room straight away. So there was this huge disconnect. That's because it was, within...
You were disconnected.
I was disconnected. you know, and now like it's just been complete opposite this time around.
Probably been overconnected, right?
I've literally had to peel this baby off me. Get her into her own cot. Like, honestly, it's been intense.
No,
I've
seen
both shots.
I've seen. No, but it's something that, again, as guys, we can't possibly comprehend. You know, the feelings that you guys, you know, you have for your child, and vice versa, and those complexities that you guys have to deal with. So I think it's important that we do touch on that.
Yeah, well, I think it's just, you know, being able to be adaptive with your children at any age they grow to, you know, that's just part of being a mother.
Yeah, because even with these pillars that we're talking about, you know, I'm talking about those pillars, but then you're talking about those pillars and then throwing a newborn child into them. How do you keep those fulfillment for yourself? How do you continue to fill your cup when you're effectively filling everything for this?
Yeah, well, it starts with making that choice to fill my cup, to make that a priority, because we can't pour from an empty cup. So, you know,
how do you do that? Because this is probably one of your biggest growths, and I'm, you know, seeing you growing from afar, close, whatever. You're doing a hell of a lot of inner work and stuff. So that's a beautiful thing that you just said. You've made a choice.
Yeah.
So how have you slotted that into motherhood to ensure? Because there's a lot of people out there who, same with men, you kind of say, I'm too busy with work, health and fitness drops, that eats into all the pillars. Next minute, your cup's empty and you're feeling like shit. And then we go down the slippery slope.
Yeah.
Same could be for motherhood, because you kind of say, I've got this baby, these things are going to drop.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed with you is you're still doing a lot of inner work. You ensure you foster time for your relationship between you and Marcella, and you can see that beautiful loving relationship you have, which keeps this foundation, which helps the child and doesn't bring traumas. And this catalogue of kind of errors isn't happening that maybe happened before. How are you doing that?
Well, I decluttered my life. I got rid of all the shit, all the distractions, anything that wasn't going to better me as a person. Got rid of it because I don't have time for it. I have time for improving myself and my family, and to helping other women now to come back to this state of health and, you know, groundedness and connectedness with their families and with themselves. Like, it's the most important thing for me, you know?
So when you say you declutter, does that mean, like, you know, your time's valuable? Return on investment for your own time sometimes, isn't it? And like, because what I found is when you're on the growth journey, I had to kind of remove certain friendship groups. Not that they're wrong, they're just on a different path to me, and I wasn't getting the value out of doing that. You know, I've stopped drinking, I've stopped doing all the things that maybe I used to do in the past, and that's given me free time to focus on other things. Did you do some similar stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Mine was pretty much done for me, which was lucky. I don't know if we'll go down that road of that story, but basically, you know, when things ended with my ex-husband, it was an opportunity for me to just start clean slate with everything, with friendships, everything. And I actually took, you know, 2 years to myself with basically not even seeing anyone to get my health sorted, because I was rapidly declining. Like, I ended up in hospital at one point with my ALT, my liver, at 940.
I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound good.
Well, it's meant to be at around 25.
Wow. How did that happen?
Well, this was just years and years of substance abuse. And, like, I was taking antidepressants, sleeping tablets, alcohol, drugs, anything that would mask what I was feeling inside. So yeah, that was really hard time for me. But
that's huge, isn't it? Because again, it's your authentic self. You just got this feeling, this isn't right. This isn't right.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people go, you know, searching just to get smashed at the weekend. And it can be, fuck this job shit, and come on with relationship shit. Let's just get on the piss and everything's going to be all right for 5 hours.
Forget about it.
Yeah, let's just forget about it.
And like, I'd never actually just sat with myself long enough or felt safe enough to feel what was really going on. You know, I'd always like, oh my God, these feelings are too much. I need a drink. I can't feel like this. So that's where that escapism comes in, because we're not actually feeling safe enough to feel. And that's a societal thing, like, you know.
100%, and it's kind of only getting worse. It's interesting there, because one of the things that I wrote down is that, you know, is we are the sum of our decisions. And you called it out even before I called it out, because I've noticed these big changes and stuff that you're doing. And I think it's fantastic that you're really locking in time for yourself, because I think we are the answer. Nobody else is the answer. You are the answer. And a lot of people search and they'll throw the excuses. Well, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this. Hang on a minute. If you really want it, you'll get it.
Right. And
it's on you. So good on you for really focusing on that. So what have you learned from yourself throughout that time? What would be the biggest learning for yourself during that, and where, you know, popping out into this position where you are? And again, you're still on the journey. There's lots of work to do, just like myself. What was the biggest kind of takeaway for you on that journey so far?
I've just learnt that I am a multi-dimensional, multifaceted woman with incredible power and magic inside me that was just hiding, you know, and afraid to be seen. And, you know, I found my light now. So
that's beautiful. And I think I was, you know, my partner Katya, very beautiful, divine feminine woman, similar to yourself. And I was having a discussion with her last week, and kind of similar story in the fact that, you know, she wasn't in the right place. She wasn't in the right environment, maybe not in the right relationship. And I could just see she didn't realize how wonderful she is.
Yeah.
Didn't realize how powerful she is. She's friggin' unbelievable at her job. She's unbelievable at everything she does. She's so empathetic with people. She connects to people really well. And she just wants good for humanity. Just a beautiful human being. But no one's ever told her.
Oh, she is. I love her so much.
No one's ever told her, right? So you sit there in this bucket, and almost, as I always say, when you're vulnerable and you kind of, you're loving and you're light and you want to do good things, people can take advantage of that. And I always say, like, you know, once you share vulnerability, sometimes people can go, oh, okay, and they can lord that over you, you know, and they can pick and choose. I always say, put you on the suffering leash, walk you around the pain park for a few days.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can do that, and then almost dim your light. And it sounds like you had a bit of a similar journey, and now you're coming into it. I
mean, it definitely, like, you know, not to get on here and diss my ex-husband, because, like, at the end of the day, he was just mirroring my inner world. So
100%.
You know, we both had a lot of healing to do, and
100%.
that was just our soul contract, right? That time we had together, and I'm so grateful for him, because I learned so much about myself.
Oh, beautiful.
But yeah, like, he would gaslight me and, you know, keep me in a state of suppression because of his own insecurities, because he knew he would never build me up, because he would be insecure that I would go off and leave him, which I ended up doing anyway.
But I think that's a common one, right? I think that's a common one.
Yeah, but, you know, if he had have built me up and he had have given me that love and support that I really needed, you know, maybe things wouldn't have ended up that way. But, look, it makes a huge, huge difference having a man in my life that completely supports me in everything that I do and all that I am, in my fucking weirdness and quirkiness. And, you know, like, he's created this space for me to be able to fully blossom into this woman that I am today. And, like, it's just... Yeah,
that's beautiful, because obviously I know you both. I've known Master a few years, and it's beautiful watching you guys. I think you're a really beautiful, loving couple who want the best for each other.
Thank you.
And so what, you know, is, good man help a good man. He's a good man, hands down. What can you describe kind of what he, you know, you've just spoke about, what is that he just provides that safe space? What does he do for you? And what do you, vice versa, do for him? Because as I said at the very beginning, it's very important that we realise it's not just for, a man just got to look after a woman's got to look after a man. We've got to look after each other. And I believe if we flip the switch, instead of what can this person do for me, and say, what can I do for this person to help them blossom?
Yeah.
Because you're going to get the same back, as you just said.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
What do you guys do that really works for you as a couple?
And that's our number one thing. We support each other in our growth 100%, and he has led me down the spiritual path, which I'm so grateful for, because I really found a connection that was just far deeper than I could ever have imagined, with something greater than myself.
Yeah, that's a good point there. You touch on something greater than yourself. There's another thing. I was looking at some stats the other day, and it was suicidality is gone through the roof. It's out of control. But I think it was between 5 and 10 times less likely to commit suicide if you have a strong belief in something else, whether that be whatever the religion is, spirituality, the creator, God, Buddha, whatever. People are 5 to 10 times less likely. Now, that's a big stat, because what you then do is you're following the whole ethos of a lot of those religions is to be into your divine, authentic self. It's taking you on that. There's a higher purpose, and it's obviously helped you as you've been kind of working on this journey, because you're just working on yourself, right? That's what it's telling you to do. You are God, right?
That's right. God is within, and we are all manifestations of the one mind, the one universal mind. I am you, you are me.
I'm looking pretty good today. Yes, I'll take it. So yeah, that's good. And do you hold yourselves accountable? Because one of the things that I kind of give Katya permission to do is to, I think we touched on it before, there's sometimes what's massive for anybody is not to feel seen or heard. And there's occasion when I'm running 1,000,000 miles an hour, the stuff I'm on with, and I'm every day, so I'm talking about this thing. Sometimes she can be trying to talk to me, and I might miss something, and I'm not that present. And I kind of, and she'll pull me up and I go, shit, sorry, because we're perfectly imperfect. I'm not always, and I go, right, thank you. I'm really working on that, and I really give her permission to hold me accountable to my higher standards that I want to continue to develop. I'm not there yet. I'm going to keep trying. I'll go up. Hopefully, I'm going like this. Do you guys hold each other accountable as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things for me is because I needed to work on my voice and my communication so much. I still can slip up where I expect him to read my mind.
It's fun.
And he's like, you need to speak, Jess. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I wanted. But no, I think we're both pretty good with that.
Yeah.
I'm always, holding myself accountable.
It's funny that, isn't it? Because you can think something and you go, because you think it, and then you just go, you're fun, and you go, what? And you start you haven't verbalized the thing, and then you start building resentment with the other person.
That's right.
And so many people don't have that self-awareness. They just think, they should operate like this. And if you sit down with someone and talk with them with love and empathy and say, hey, this is where I am, and can you, okay, no worries. And usually it's dissolved. It can be, if you're in the right relationship, that is, and you're both, evolved. But that causes a lot of problems in relationships, doesn't it?
Yeah. And look, I came from a place where I didn't even know what it was that I wanted to say. So I didn't even know how to communicate what I wanted.
Yeah.
No. So from that to be able to go, oh, okay, this is what I'm needing. I know what I need. I know what I'm worthy of. And I feel safe to be able to communicate this to you and still be loved.
That's a great point.
So it's giving the body this constant feedback over time and the nervous system to feel safe. It's not something that happens overnight. This growth that I've had has happened over time, and being able to fully step into my authentic self is because I've given myself enough feedback to say it's okay.
That's 100%. You just triggered something in me there, because I'm thinking, imagine, you almost shouldn't get in a relationship, or you definitely shouldn't get married unless you know what you're true values are in a relationship. Now, how many people don't do that? You didn't do it. I've discovered it when I was 46.
Yeah.
You never done it. It's almost like, if you come to marriage, it should be before do you understand your non-negotiable values? Had you had the discussion? Well, no, go away. You're not getting married.
Yeah.
It would solve a lot of shit in a relationship.
It would, but also, your values can change as well. And I know couples that have gone from, like, my sister, for example, her and her partner, and like their values would be very, very different now to what they were when they met, when they were high school sweethearts. But if you have that connection and you talk, you're able to communicate. Like, there've been 1,000 different versions of themselves, and they've grown together. So there's that as well. So
that's the communication piece, isn't it? If you're staying in your head, but, if you set a strong foundation, then you have those regular catch-ups,
Yeah.
I know Katya, she'll now and again say, we haven't had a conversation in a while, and I'm like, oh, shit, something's come away. I've done something wrong. I've gone off track again. And it'll just be kind of, hey, I've maybe noticed a little bit of this. And I go, okay, and, how can we, if we're slightly off, how do we come back? And then you can grow together. So it's a really, really good...
what? Mars and I have actually gotten so good at this now that we actually pretty much deal with things in the moment. Yeah, I have to say, like, we've gotten really good, and it's taken work on my part and on his as well, and owning our, being accountable. So
yeah, what I've found with that is, and we're so much better at that now, but we've still got a long way to go. It's getting rid of the ego, because the ego wants to kick. Because you're like, who's telling me this?
Yeah.
It's
and sometimes you want to be.
I know.
Like, I want to have this.
Yeah, exactly. And the key thing there is, like, you have. At the end, I've said it with my missus. I've said, right, I don't want to get triggered, but sometimes I do. If you say it to me like this, it lands softer, it cuts through, so that maybe it's tonality or the phrase, and then I'll say, what works with you? Because I know when I say something, I might come a bit, and then we've done that, and she goes, okay, and then now and I'll talk, and I get a certain tone and a certain way, and I frame it a certain way, and it just lands soft, and we come away, how good are we getting at this?
Oh, wow.
Aren't we getting better at this?
Okay.
Which really helps us. So again, we're not perfect. We're trying every day. We spoke around, you just touched on there, we change, we constantly evolve. And
we're supposed to.
100%. 100%. And I always say, from a child, I've said many times on the podcast, we're a ball of love, we start getting programmed. But we're getting programmed, like any program, that, a computer can have a virus. One of the programs might not be a good program for us. It's like a virus, but that's then in us. And then you get your parents, and that might not be, in a good spot. And as you were saying, your initial, with Sierra, first child, some of that programming through that relationship, you might have picked up a few viruses, which you're now going to pick off. But then you talk around, you go into school, you get programmed there, then you might get a partner who might be doing certain things, which is then adding different programs into you. It's and a lot of them, it's not truth. A lot of them are opinions. A lot of them are attachments from other people.
They're not even yours.
They're not yours. So before you know it, it's like, I see this vision of, like, somebody walking, and it was almost like an animation of just building up with all this shit, and in the end you just can't move because you've got all these attachments, and none of them are fucking yours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got this like a magnet of attachment, dun 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 dun, and you just, next minute you can't move. And not only are those programs not yours, then there's even facts within society which are known to be facts, which facts change every year. If you look about the tobacco industry, that was sold by doctors as a health thing. It's certainly not now. There was a program in the UK called QI. I think it was going for like 8 years, and this, super intelligent, Stephen Fry used to run it, super intelligent guy, had all these comedians on. And there's this list of facts. And I read something. By the end of the series, 80% of the facts were now not factually corrected, changed. So, which is phenomenal, right? So you've got these programs, then you've got all this stuff that we're digesting, but it's all opinions and shit. And I think a lot of people then pick this up, and they have this frame of the world which imprisons them. And we're just in this head of stuff. And the majority of it is bullshit. It's either not yours or false.
Well, we're living in a patriarchal system that has literally been built to suppress and disconnect us. So they're going to feed us information and programs that are going to make us feel that exact way. That's the point of it. It's our job to undo that and to peel back the layers of conditioning and suppression that we've been subject to from babies, you know?
Every which way.
And that is waking up. That is awakening. And that, you know, that's our purpose here, to wake up and to find ourselves and our truth. Our truth.
100%.
Not somebody else's.
100%. No, that's what I mean. I think, I say, like, if I just look at, I try and find simplistic views, simplistic approaches to helping this situation, simplistic views of seeing the world. And I see humanity like a computer game. And the computer game is you come in, you haven't got a clue who you are, you're a ball of love. I see that analogy. We immediately go, right, bang, we're going to program with all this shit and facts of bullshit. And your goal is to, by the end of it, get back to your authentic self, because you can't. And that's your goal. That's the whole purpose of the game. It's as simple as that.
And then ascend.
Exactly. That's the whole purpose of the game. But what a lot of people don't realize, that. And that's what I'm just trying to describe. Because I would say 99% of people walk around, running around their own head.
In a loop.
In an absolute loop. They go to bed, they're thinking about the shit problem from work, the argument they just had over there, this, that. They get up in the morning, they go, reset, let's think about that crap again, and tackle this day. And there's only these little moments, and I think you're only when you're present and you're in something. You know, like I go play volleyball on the beach, and I'm playing volleyball, and I can't think of anything else other than that spike, and I'm fucking pumped, and I'm looking to see, and I'm so present, I'm in flow. If I'm, you know, sometimes in a great conversation, I'm in flow, everything else just drifts aside. It's beautiful. You know, that's presence. A lot of people don't understand that's the goal. So it's find yourself and be as fucking present as you can. It's very hard. I'll come out of here and my head will be racing.
Of course, that's human nature.
Exactly, that's human nature. But as long as those things that are running around your head aren't poison, because we're poisoning ourselves, especially with past. And that's why for you, you've spoken about all this, your dark period, really low moments. I'm sure you were considering all kinds of shit when you're in that space. Have you managed to be, you know, because the poison that we give, and I've seen it with Katya as well, it's kind of, especially Katya going through a breakup, 2 beautiful children, didn't want to affect them, really fucking concerned that she's affected them. It breaks her heart every day. And I say to us, at some point you've got to let that go, because there's no point for you. You've got to now focus on, you know, moving forward in this world. And it's like, you can't just carry this poison and get up and relive it and get up and relive it. And
because the shame, carrying the shame is the poison. I've let go all of that.
Beautiful.
I don't carry any of that with me now. And whenever anything comes up like that, like I have built such a strong foundation of catching myself before I spiral down into that loop of negative thought patterns or, you know, self-sabotaging beliefs, that I'll catch myself and, you know, I can still feel everything that's going on, because it's not about being positive all the time. That's not what this human experience is about. Like, we are supposed to feel rage and, you know, sadness and love and grief and pleasure. We're supposed to be all of these things, but we're not supposed to hold on to things. We're supposed to move through life and let our emotions flow through us so that we can be in flow and be in the present moment in our life more often.
Yeah, 100%. That's the duality, right? We've got to experience the duality. We've got where the lessons come from and stuff like that. But no, it's good that you've let that through. And I know you're working with women at the moment, and hopefully, well, I know you will. You'll help a lot of women with that, because it's very, very much needed. Those things that you talk around, and again, I think I really want to highlight this. A lot of this movement, we are talking around fulfillment, because what we're trying to do is catch people before they fall. And that's kind of similar work that what you'll be doing with women, is making women and men understand there's an equation to success to the human existence. And as if you understand this, like I would say, like in business, there's a success equation. If you want to improve profitability, revenue, if a business is underperforming, I can go in as I work in business coaching. I can go in and go, right, okay, let's play with them. You need to be in that position. You know, these finances aren't working. Humans the same. There's an equation. and you got to walk through it. So I really believe if more people do the work that you're doing, understand these questions, the toxicity that builds up from your authentic self, ultimately the end goal of that is suicide. And I really believe this work and stuff that you're doing can really help reduce that. And again, I touch on that. I think it's important that people find a purpose. I think people find a cause, whether that be a higher being of whatever it is, or just some purpose that gets you out of bed every day.
That's right.
You know, whatever it is, there's something in everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and if anybody's out there, just because I call it vanilla land, you get up, and I was there not so long ago and I described it, whereas, you know, my business was going good, this, that, and the other, but I'd lost this purpose. I'm going, well, that's good. You know, I'm in some money now. And what?
Yeah.
And what? My relationship was okay. I knew I needed to deal with something, didn't deal with it, floating down that vanilla. It just feels hot. And it doesn't feel super toxic, but after a while it builds up to being super toxic.
Yeah.
It's that, at some point you've got to make that decision, right?
Absolutely.
So what is it that you're doing now in that space to kind of help people?
Absolutely. So I am part of a community called Driven Women.
Beautiful.
And they are like-minded women who value health, wealth and abundance, and creating purpose and leaving a legacy behind in their life. I'm just deep gratitude for this community because they are, you know, really making a difference in the world and helping people get out of their 9-to-5 jobs by going into business online. And yeah, it's just beautiful. Breaking the cycles of what we've been talking about and coming together in sisterhood. Like, I was really vulnerable with them on the call just before we came here. And I said, look, this is all like seeming even a little bit too much for me right now. And it was so beautiful to have each and every one of them get on the call at the end of it and say something to me to just uplift me.
Oh, wow.
And like, I was sitting there, tears streaming down my face, and it was like everything that I needed.
Beautiful.
Just that support just made me go, you know what? I fucking got this. Like, I can do this. You know? So it really just, having that community is just so empowering.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And because you took health, wealth, purpose, you mentioned there. Obviously, you need a health, otherwise it's not going to go into the other pillars. But that purpose that you mentioned there, that's beautiful. That is kind of ingrained in your movement, because that's the thing that drives people.
Yeah.
That's the thing that gets you out of bed. And people who have no purpose, they just kind of exist. And if you exist, that's a slippery slope. You're not built on a solid foundation. So you're on a bit of jelly when you're just kind of floating through.
Yeah.
So you've done a shitload of work on your inner work, and I can see, it's probably your strongest pillar. I can see, because you've had to, from the dark space you've been. What is it? What's your primary stuff that you do? And again, going back to, the schmeg,
Schmang.
schmang. Sorry, I don't want to say schmeg, the schmang. I know that, you did the opposite, where you just, you gave it all your attention and became very attached to you. How did you still manage to do it? Because I know you still meditate, you do all of, your inner work. How did you slot all that in amongst that?
Well, like I said, I don't have time for much else. I don't go out drinking or dinners or, I catch up with girlfriends occasionally, but most of my focus is on getting myself into a place of being at peace. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of rest. And
so every time the baby's asleep, you're off for a meditation.
Like when she's asleep, I'll just go with whatever I'm feeling that day, because I've also got goals that I like to tick off every day, but there might be a day where I need to have a fucking cry for 2 hours. So I really just try and honor where I'm at on the day. So it's not like every day I get to go and meditate and sit in ceremony. I'd love to. It's literally my favorite thing to do, is go and spend time in nature on my own and connect, which is far cry from the person I used to be, who couldn't stand to be alone for 2 minutes. It just goes to show like how
Good.
how beautiful this work actually is.
So you're prioritizing yourself, which is beautiful. So I think I was thinking of an analogy when you were talking there about, and I think I can see that you've really worked on yourself. I can see you letting things flow through. You're not looking back at anybody or anything with anger. You're seeing this is a life lesson. And that's something I want to, you've spoken about, what you've been through. You've been dark, drink, drugs, you've hit rock bottom, you've been in a toxic relationship, you've been gaslit, you've done all of these things, and then you've popped out at the end. But you're not holding those grudges. You're not holding anger about anyone. And I think that's a really important message for people, because there's no point in looking back. And I always say, if there's that old saying, if you carry and hold anger towards someone who's done you wrong, that's like you drinking poison and expecting them to die.
Yeah. 100%.
It doesn't fucking make sense. It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So I'm really glad that you've done that. And I think that's a powerful lesson for other people to try to take note. I always remember my older brother, funny guy, our Chris, and he used to go around, get into fights when he was younger and stuff. And I would say to him, why are you kicking off and all that? And he'd say, he's a dickhead, and I feel it's my duty to tell him he's been a dickhead and stuff. And he would get tangled up in these things, or somebody had wronged him, and he said, I'll never forget that this dickhead did that to me. I'm like, you're carrying all this energy and anger around with you. He's not suffering. He doesn't think twice.
Yeah.
But you're suffering, and you're kind of taking your own poison.
Well, if you think about it, every time you go back and you drop into that vibration of the anger or the shame, you're dropping down to that lower vibration. So you're pulling yourself back down. So I'm actually mastering the art of letting go.
Yeah, good.
And that's something I've done a lot of work on. And, I'm not perfect with it, but it's helped me so much, because when we learn to let go, we create so much more space and free ourselves up for, more love and more abundance and more beautiful experiences, because we're not being pulled down back into those, lower vibrations.
No, that's beautiful. One thing I want to ask you, and then we'll start kind of slowly wrapping up, is we touched on the beautiful relationship that you have with Marcelo. I've kind of give a few examples of, how myself and Katya operate. Sometimes I miss the mark. And as a man, I'd like to see, as a man, how do I think that, how can we, help women? How can we, blow the fires of their flames? And for me, it was like letting your partner know you see them, genuinely looking at them, genuinely listening. And it's hard, and when you run 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I've seen the impact it has on my missus when I do it. I don't do it enough. I need to do it more. But my thing to men would be, look your missus in the eye, tell her you see her, tell her how beautiful she is, and you see all of her skills. Because men think, we're doing all this. Pause, take a look. And I've seen the impact that that's had on my missus. It's beautiful to see, and I want to do that more, and I want to foster that more. And that comes back at me anyway, because then she's happier, I'm happier, this vibration lifts. And I think that's really powerful for me. That's something that I've listened. I'm not saying that's the number one thing. It's just something that's really been, I've noted that I maybe haven't done to the full effect in previous relationships, and I'm bloody trying hard at it now.
Yeah.
And it means a lot to my missus. She actually said to me, the last time I sat down and done this, she said that was like, that healed a lot of wounds for me from the past, which was beautiful. So the question I would ask you, because I think we work in symbiosis, men and women, what do you believe that, a good woman and in a relationship with a man, how do you believe that a woman can support a man and get the best out of a man and really help a man, blossom?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody's got their own love language, and finding out what your partner's is a really great idea, because if your partner is someone that thrives off, affection, that's going to make him feel love and build him up, then give him that affection. Or if it is someone that, needs a lot of building up verbally, like constantly giving them that feedback of what they're doing. And it's in the little things, like noticing the little things that, Marcelo, for example, told me he was going to work on something the other week, and it was a personal thing within the family and within my daughter. And I noticed that he was making that change with her. And I acknowledged that to him. I said, I see what you're doing, that you're changing the way you're interacting and you're trying to be better and fix that about yourself. And I see you and I love you for that. So just those little things, it's in the little things.
So powerful, aren't they? It's so powerful.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known this years ago.
I know.
Just saying those because it just comes back and your relationship, it's almost like it's putting cement into the relationship every day, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is, just strengthening it. So,
oh, that's beautiful. Okay, just to kind of close, what advice would you give your younger self today? What would you say to younger self or any young women who are kind of going through stuff that are you aware? What would your biggest piece of advice be?
Listen to your intuition, follow your heart. Because if you don't, you're going to go through a long journey to get back to it. So if you already are connected to what it is that you know is right for you, don't go against it, and just to be gentle with yourself. We're so hard on ourselves and we are all doing our best. Everyone is at different levels of consciousness. We are all going through different things. So just be kind to yourself and to everyone.
No, beautiful. I think we're all struggling. In a nutshell, we're all struggling.
Yeah,
every single one of us is struggling. We are perfectly imperfect. But no, I'd just like to kind of wrap this up around, thank you for coming in. Thank you for being so vulnerable with this, because as I always say, vulnerability is a superpower. It's been a pleasure to hear from kind of your side, hearing Marcelo's side and seeing it from you and seeing those that I can really see that you're working on that communication and you're bringing yourself kind of together. And I know that builds a strong, foundation for you guys and obviously for your children as well. So good on you.
Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Cheers, Jess.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers.